designing a wallet,
Yeah.
and you talked about different different steps.
So we can't hear you very well unless it's just me. Are you able to speak up a bit louder?
I'm speaking loud. My internet is very
Oh,
low.
your internet. Okay, but
Yeah.
you've said part of it. So there was, thank you. There was an activity for designing a wallet for me,
Yeah.
and then in the process you were put into two groups, but I was in neither of the two groups. So what did that tell you guys about prototyping? Let me pick Billy. I remember I saw Billy in that class. Billy, are you able to unmute yourself?
Hello.
Hello, yes.
Yes, I'm still remember about our last session as we were talking about prototyping. Firstly, the exercise we did, we designed a wallet for you, and we were thinking about which kind of wallet will you like, and we were trying to make it as it's going to be so nice for you. As we were talking about prototyping, you say it's like a concept that we did, an idea that we developed to design. A prototyping is like something we want to text. We want to take before having what we want to make. So that's what I can say about prototyping.
Okay. And I remember during the activity, it was hard for you guys to design when I was not there. And it was, the end point was to tell you that whoever you're designing for, whatever prototype you're doing, that person the end user must be there for you guys to be able to make something that everybody will be able to be fulfilled with. Okay? For all of us to be on the same page, the end user must be part of this process. That's why you drew a wallet. Some of you were assuming I like black because black is a neutral color. And so you'd find that when you were presenting, you said, we picked black because black is neutral. And for everyone, it was generally that Jacinta would want a black wallet based on black being a neutral color. Is it me? Someone hasn't muted, I think. Okay. And so just to pick up on that, let's see, let me move my presentation. I hope all of you can see the presentation. So from last week, I tried to take you back to how the whole process began, the whole Hcd process began. And I remember showing you guys this picture. And this picture was supposed to give you an overview of what the Hcd process always looks like. And I mentioned to you that this is a squiggle. And the squiggle it just shows you that before you come up with the solutions to various problems, it is always mumble jumbled. As you can see, from when the problem is defined to when you go to carry out the research process, to when you're coming up with the insights from the research process. And after coming up with the insights, you develop what are known as concepts. Now, the concepts are what we call the ideation process. It's the ideas that you come up with before you now do the prototyping. So you find that the period between research to when you're finding the insights to when you're developing the concepts it's always a crazy moment for any designer, because you've still not reached the end goal. And so in between this process, you're trying to figure out, what does this end user want? Why is this a problem for this end user? So you're researching because you're trying to see, where is this problem exactly? You're developing the concept to try help solve this problem. And then you go out and test. And when you start doing the prototyping, you prototype and then you test. So when you start doing the prototyping, it starts becoming clearer and clearer what the solution to this person's problem is. Okay? And that's why we always use this squiggle, because that's how we feel each time we are beginning a process, each time we are beginning the HCD process, each time we're trying to find solutions to various problems. And so I remember I also showed you this picture. And this picture is familiar because it's supposed to always remind you that the end user is always the person at the center. We say human-centered design, because we are designing with and for this person, okay? We are not designing just for the person. And that's why the first picture on your right-hand side showcases a person who is kind of giving out information to the other person. But when you see the picture below the first one, there are two arrows. One arrow is facing to the right and the other arrow is facing to the left, because they are communicating. So the aim of HCD is for you to remember that you're designing with and for the end user. And that's why I always show you guys this picture, so that you can remember that it's not a one-way process, but a two-way process. Now, when we were learning about HCD, the first day, we told you guys that it is human first, okay? You design your approach with your users, okay? It is problem-led, meaning you have this problem or this situation that you're trying to find a solution for. And that's when the design aspect comes in, okay? And then there is the third, which is build. So you make to explore, you learn, develop, refine by actually building. So it's human first, meaning design your approach with your users. Problem-led, think big and be ambitious. Okay, this part for the problem-led, where it says design, it means that you come from, when you're doing the HCD process, you come from a prospect of where you've gone for the research part, you've developed insights, and now you want to design solutions to a person's problem. So when you're doing the ideation stage, people will come up with very crazy ideas, but you will hear me and Sarah tell you that no idea is too big or too small. You never shut down anybody's idea during the ideation process of HCD. So that's why it's saying think big and be ambitious about how you could really solve a problem for a user. You know, you don't start thinking about solutions and then you bring down one against another. You just let them come out, okay? That process of designing is for anybody's voice to be heard. And then you make to explore. So this make to explore is the part where when you're prototyping, you'll find yourselves coming back after you've developed the first prototype. You come back, you go to the user, you show them the prototype, they tell you, this looks okay, but I think if we did this, it would make it better. You come back, you refine it, you go back again to the ground, you showcase it to them, and you could find that this process of building and rebuilding prototypes is called iteration. So that's why it's called make to explore. You're prototyping, you're coming back, you're developing the prototype to suit the user, you go back again, you showcase this user, the user says they want it differently or they want you to add something to it, you come back, you refine it, you take it back again. So that's why you're seeing the part that says make to explore. So I showed you this also last week, and I told you that during this HCD process, currently we are at prototyping. And I remember mentioning to you guys that most of you people are still stuck at insight generation, meaning you're still at the research phase. From when the year began, we already were able to see that you guys had come to the part where you had your project defined, meaning you knew what kind of problems that you wanted to solve. And so I challenged you guys that by the time we come this week, that most of you should be, if not at the prototyping, you should be at the ideation phase. Because I told you that each time you're delaying to move, you're going to find it harder when you're doing these processes and we are not there. And if you look to your right-hand side, we are only left with 2 stages. It's testing and piloting. Today is the last class for prototyping. So in case you are not yet at prototyping, it means you're delaying the HCD process. And it might be hard for you to be able to carry it out when all the classes are over. You'll find it a bit overwhelming, given that we are not with you guys where you are. So the easiest way is for you guys to try and catch up to where we are, so that after each class, when we are trying to synthesize and see where did you get stuck, where did you get wrong, it gets easier for us to tell you how to solve whichever situation that you might be in within your project. So just remember that these are the 5 key steps when it comes to HCD. For those who may have not been there during the first class, this is what you need to remember, that it starts with the research phase. When you do research, you get what are known as insights. From those insights, you start to do what is called ideation, meaning you're trying to come up with solutions to the various insights that you have seen. Those insights now become kind of the problems that you want to solve, okay? And once you come up with ideas on how to solve these problems, you go through a process that is called prototyping, which is where we are. You're developing and coming up with solutions, which can be a product or it can be a service. And after you prototype, you take your product or service and you start testing, okay? And once you test, you do what is called piloting and scaling, okay? The testing part is just you're bringing out now your final product to your users. You're certain that with this product or this service, it is solving the problems that you found during your insight generation, okay? So I'll move. And so last week we defined prototyping, right? And I was telling you guys that prototyping is both a mindset and a technique. You're using your hands and you're using your mind to form these prototypes, okay? It involves developing ideas and testing them with the aim to learn, okay? We move from developing a basic concept to testing a fully developed service, product, or concept. Prototyping is not only about making, but it is also a process to learn, iterate, and refine based on the need of the user. Now, I also told you what is a prototype. And a prototype is anything a person can look at and respond. Okay? And why do we use prototypes? The act of prototyping is a way of asking a question and testing an idea. And the purpose of prototyping is to invite the stakeholders to shape the idea and form the function. What I can tell you in a nutshell is prototyping saves you from overusing your finances. It's a process that, during a project, you've been given a certain amount of finances, you have a certain amount of time to carry out certain activities. If you use the HCD method, the human-centered design method during your project management process, it saves you time and money. When you prototype, you're going to your end user and you're simply asking them, do you think this will work? And you see, the moment you have their answers, it makes it easier for you to develop the final output based on this end user's remarks. Okay, so I can see the chat. Sorry, Herenina, yes, I will go a bit slower. Okay, I'm sorry for that. So when you're prototyping, the reason you're doing it is because, one, you want to come up with the end product at once. You don't want to think about the end product by yourself. Then you go and take the end product to the user without their hearsay, without them telling you whether this will work or not. If you develop something without testing it or without inquiring from your end user, you're likely to develop a product or a service that will not be used by people at the end of the day. Okay? So a simple example would be the telephones that we always use. And I remember I told you guys about the communication and how communication has continued to evolve over time. But you will notice before, for example, the iPhone user develops another iPhone, they normally go to inquire from these end users who have these iPhones, what do you think is missing? And you'll find that very little is changed from the previous phone because people are satisfied with how the iPhone is looking and the gadgets that it has. So anytime they go to prototype, they are getting very little information on what this end user wants to change. Okay. And that's why every time you find an iPhone user, I even spoke to a colleague of mine yesterday and asked her what has changed from the one that was there before. And she said, not much, just the camera, because there's a satisfaction with the applications and the services that they are currently receiving. But you see, if the iPhone makers did not inquire from the end user, and then, for example, they go and change how the whole face of the iPhone looks like, they might end up losing all their buyers, all the people who normally purchase this phone. And that's why very little keeps changing on the phone. Because I was asking how comes every time all I see is a camera has been added. And she said it's because the phone is as it is already satisfactory. Okay. So prototyping saves these iPhone makers from making very drastic changes that will cost them more money. Okay. And so I wanted to tell you guys about the prototyping journey. Now, when we're doing prototyping within our projects, we normally go through two phases. And the two phases are, there is low fidelity prototyping, and then we have high fidelity prototyping. I hope I'm not going too fast for the French users, but I can't see any comments on the chat, so I think now I'm okay. So during the prototyping, you'll have what are known as high fidelity prototyping and low fidelity prototyping. But I wanted you to see this diagram. So today morning, I was looking through on the Hcd process. Now you might not, the diagram I showed you up there that was showcasing the Hcd process, this is the same diagram, only that they have called it empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. But it's the same processes that you have seen up there. The ones that were saying insight generation, I know now the words might be a bit different, but I just wanted you to understand when you look at this diagram that HCD is not necessarily a linear process. And I was looking at this article today morning, and you can find that anytime you're trying to go through the human-centered design process, some steps redo themselves, okay? Sometimes you will go through the whole HCD process, you get to know the problem, you get to define the problem, you get to look into solutions that can solve this problem, you prototype and you test, okay? But you find sometimes you're at the testing phase, which is the last one, when you identify another solution or you identify another problem that is within that solution you are solving, and the process takes you back to define, okay? Or you could be at prototyping when you get another idea, and so the process takes you back to ideation. So you could be testing and it takes you back to ideation because you find another solution or another way that can help solve that problem. So when I say it is a non-linear process, it's because you will keep going back and forth in between these phases, okay? So sometimes you are testing and you find that you have another idea, so it takes you back to ideation. Sometimes you're prototyping, you come up with another idea, you go back to ideation. It will not always be a straightforward linear process. You'll find that you will be going back and forth. But the back and forth does not mean that whatever solutions you had gotten do not get used. It just means that you are refining what you already have. Is there someone who has a question? Okay. Okay, so Ada, I think you have to mute yourself. Sorry. So I just wanted to show you this so that when you go to the field and you find yourself having to redo some of these processes, it's because HCD or design thinking is not necessarily a linear process, okay? And so let me just go to the next slide. So low fidelity. So in prototyping, we always start with low fidelity prototyping before we go to the high fidelity prototyping. And low fidelity prototypes can either be models that are cheaply and easily made or simply recounts or visualizations of them. So a low fidelity prototype, it's not costly, and that's why we were telling you that prototyping is very key because it saves you as a project manager on time and on money, because you're just designing something. You want to understand this. What does this end user want? So you use something that is very simple, okay? And you'll see during the examples that we're going to give you on projects that we have done, what I mean when I say that you use something that is very simple and easy to access. So when you're doing prototyping, the low fidelity, the pros are that it is quick and inexpensive, okay? And it is possible to make instant changes and test. It is disposable, meaning you can easily do away with it. But you see, if you go straight to making your end product, it costs you money. You cannot say you can easily get rid of that. It will be something that you'll have to keep, and you'll have to try and get people to use. But if you go through low fidelity prototyping, it ensures that by the time you're making your last product, you're sure that this is something people will use, this is something people need, this is something that will not go to waste, and this is something that will not cost you. So it enables the designer to gain an overall view of the product using minimal time and effort, as opposed to focusing on the finer details. Okay, so you're seated with the end user, and you're using something as simple as a cardboard. The flip charts, you're just drawing on a white piece of paper. You draw something with them, and you're trying to tell them, okay, is this the phone? Do you want this phone to be like this? Should we add a camera? And this end user will also be drawing on that simple flip chart. Okay, so it will be it's a very quick process. It's a very quick and rapid process, but it is also saving you money. And because you're doing it with the end user, it's saving you money, and it's saving you too much time that you would have taken to make an end product without this person who is going to be using it. Okay? Okay, so I want to show you on high fidelity prototyping. Now, high fidelity prototypes look and operate closer to the finished good. Okay, so when you do the low fidelity prototyping, which is this, you make this prototype with the end user, and then you still go and test with them. You're not going to be making something that other people will not use, even if it's the low fidelity. Even when you're drawing, while we are in the process of testing low fidelity prototypes, when we are making them, we still go and test with these actual users on the ground. So it's not something that we make and then we don't use. We make, we design it with the user, and we go and test with these users. Okay? Yes. And so on the high fidelity prototyping, they are almost the end product. Why? Because after you do the low fidelity prototyping, you test it with the end users. They tell you what they want to have changes, where they feel the changes should be made on the product or on the service, what they are comfortable with, what they were not comfortable with. They will tell you this information. Okay, and so this information, you take it down, and then you come back and make what is called a high fidelity prototype. And then now with this high fidelity prototype, it is close to the finished material. It is actually more like the end product. Okay, but with this high fidelity prototype, you will also still go back to the field with it. You will give your end users again, and they will make comments on it. And based on those comments, now you will come and refine it to the final product. And so that's why it says high fidelity prototypes are prototypes that look and operate closer to the finished product because they are almost the complete version. In fact, every time we do high fidelity prototyping, we always go to the field, but the remarks we get are fewer. There are not many changes that are needed at that time because we are giving them close to what they wanted, the end product. And the advantages of doing this is engaging. The stakeholder can instantly see their vision realized, and they will be able to judge how well it meets their expectations, wants, and needs. And then user testing involving high fidelity prototypes will allow the evaluator to gather information with a high level of validity and applicability, okay? The closer the prototype is to the finished product, the more confident the design team will have in how people will respond, interact with, and perceive the design, okay? And so remember, one thing I want you to keep in mind is during this whole process, every time we prototype, we involve all the stakeholders. When we go to test, we involve the end user. Even the end user is part of the prototype, the making of the prototype. So despite them being the ones who are guiding us on how the prototype should be, the end user is also part of the testing. So we are testing and we are creating the prototypes with these end users. Okay. And so I wanted to give you a few guidelines for prototyping. It is important to remember that prototypes are supposed to be quick and easy tests. Okay, they are quick and easy tests of design solutions. Okay, now you need to remember that in this process, the aim is to just start. Okay, so it says just start building. Do not overthink this process. The moment you overthink, you will end up coming up with solutions or ideas or products or services that people do not necessarily need. And that's why I keep using the example of the iPhone. If you see, very little about it changes, but when the next product comes out, it is a better version of the previous product. But they don't overthink, okay? If you overthink, you come up with solutions that are not necessarily needed. So it says design thinking has a bias towards action. That means if you have any uncertainties about what you're trying to achieve, your best bet is to just make something. Creating a prototype will help you think about your ideas in a concrete manner and potentially allow you to gain insights in ways that you can prove your idea. Then it says, do not spend too much time. Prototyping is all about speed. The longer you spend building a prototype, the more emotionally attached you get to the idea, thus hampering the ability to objectively judge its merits. Okay? So even when we go through this process of prototyping, I've been in a session where we were doing some prototyping, and my manager, who was within that project, would tell us, you have 15 minutes, think about the idea, you know, and we quickly dash out ideas that we think will solve that problem. And as we are creating the prototype, he takes the process very fast, because if we stay too much at one point, we won't be able to create a very end user friendly product. And so this process normally you're taken through it very fast. It's a very fast process. So as you're going to the field, do not go and do an ideation process for 1 week and then do a prototyping process for 1 week. You can do these processes within a day. So long as you have the insights with you, the insights will guide you as you're making the ideas and as you're formulating the prototypes. So long as you have your insights with you, that is enough to guide you on the kind of solutions that you're looking towards, the kind of services or products that your end user needs. Okay? And then as you're making these prototypes, remember what you are testing. Now, this is very important. It's not just about creating a product that someone will use, but when you're going to the field, keep asking yourself, why did we make this product? What solutions were we trying to solve? All prototypes.
Back on.
So, you can hear John. Okay. John, please mute yourself. Okay. So all prototypes should have a central testing issue. Do not lose sight of that issue, but at the same time, do not get so bound to it so as to lose sight for other lessons you could learn from. So when we normally go to the field to prototype, we have these solutions, but we want to know, we have to keep reminding ourselves, what are we testing? Now, in terms of the phone, you could be testing how many people are able to maneuver when using the iPhone gadget, right? Or maybe you're testing, it could be accessibility, it could be affordability. You know, it depends on the insights that you had when you went through your research process. And every time they develop this phone and the phone comes out, they want feedback, you know, even when they have made the end product, they want feedback. Even when they are testing the prototypes and they are being informed this is what they want to be changed, as they are testing, they are looking into, it could be accessibility, it could be affordability. And that's why some of the iPhones, you find at some point they start decreasing in price. So now if you look like a year back, I'm using the iPhone because I'm sure everybody has heard of that phone all over the world. And so if you look at an iPhone 11 right now, there's iPhone 13. But if you look at an iPhone 11 right now, it does not have the same value as the iPhone 13. It has decreased in value. So they make the phone in such a way that, sorry for the noise in the background. So they make the phone in such a way that when another type comes out, whoever still wants to have access to the iPhone can afford it. Okay, because there's the iPhone 7, there's the iPhone 8, but some of them are now affordable, right? They're not as expensive as the iPhone 13. So they make these other ones decrease in price so that any person can have access to buy and use the phone. So accessibility, affordability could be what they are testing, okay? So, and you build with the user in mind, okay? Test the prototype against the expected user behaviors and needs. Then learn from the gaps in the expectation and realities and improve your ideas. Okay? So remember what you're testing, build with the user in mind, do not take too much time, and just start. Okay? So long as you have your insights, just start thinking about how that prototype is going to be. Okay. And so I wanted to show you this example. Okay, I'll start with this one. But I want you to remember something. Prototyping is an essential step in design thinking, and it's often used in the final testing phase. Every product has a target audience, and the prototypes are designed to solve problems in some way. To assess whether a product really solves the user's problems, designers create an almost working model or a mock-up of the product, and that's what we call the prototype. And we test it, okay? Prototyping allows the designer to test the practicability of the current design and potentially investigate how trial users think and feel about the product, okay? It enables proper testing and exploring of design concepts before using too many resources. So I want you to remember this point, that we are prototyping to save on time, to save on money, and to ensure that whatever we are making, this end user will accept it, will be able to use it. And I always tell you guys that when you're coming up with these solutions, think 10 years from now. Think long term. Do not just think about the now, okay? Foresee ahead. That's what I can guide you to know. That's why you're seeing up to now, the iPhone is changing slightly, but people are still purchasing the other iPhones that came before this iPhone 13 Pro Max. So the example here at the side is a project that Sarah was a part of. Okay, she knows it best because it was a nutrition project, and I just wanted to invite her to kind of tell us a bit about it. And then I can tell you why I put the two pictures. But Sarah, would you like to talk about the Ujileo project we had?
Okay, thank you, Jess. So I'll just make it very plain and simple. So this was a nutrition project, and we're trying to provide porridge for women and children, basically commercial porridge for sale that is fortified. And the challenge was to address the problem of nutrition, basically. So making sure that women and children are nourished and they're receiving the proper nutrients. So one of the ideas was to come up with a vending machine for porridge. And the reason why porridge was chosen is because porridge is a very, it's locally consumed every day. It's something that children are fed every single day. So we decided to test the concept of a vending machine. So basically having community vending machines where people can buy affordable porridge from. So we basically tested the idea of a vending machine, and we started by using we created mock-ups, basically a cardboard version of a vending machine, and that's what we used to go out and talk to people in the communities and ask them, this is the idea we're thinking of coming up with a vending machine that looks like this. These are the features, these are the buttons. And participants would tell us, oh, this is a good idea, maybe move the button here, maybe the cup should come from here, the cup should be this size. So that's the kind of feedback we were actually getting from people. And then from the feedback we received, then we were able to go to the next level of testing, where now we had actual vending machines that were developed. We had them in a community setting. We had them tested in a school setting as well. Yes, so that at least shows you the difference of how we started from a low fidelity prototype. So very simple with just mockups and papers, ideas, before we even proceeded to having like a more refined and high level version of a prototype. Yes, yeah, that's it. Unless there's a question, I'll pass it back to Jacinta.
Okay. So you guys, I didn't get to take the picture of how the end product looks like, but I hope you understand it. So as Sarah has said, they were doing a nutrition project, and we picked porridge because porridge, it's consumed by everyone. And the prototyping idea for them, what really interested and captured me was Sarah told me they started with a cardboard. You see the cardboard box, the carton box you're seeing on the right hand side here. They started with that, and they made holes where they thought that this would be where the porridge could come out from. This is where we could put the cups. This is where we could put the sugar. This is where this is where we can plug it in. This is how big we want this machine to look like. And that box, as she's telling you, is what they went with to the field. Okay, and that's what we say, low fidelity prototyping. So remember, can you imagine if Sarah and the team would have they would have started with this gadget that you're seeing down here, you know, it would have costed so much for them to do this end product, take it to the field, and then have the person who, maybe the shop that they want to use it, tell them that machine can't fit in my shop, you know, or have the end users say, the arrangement of this machine does not look as per what would encourage them to use it. And can I just tell you guys that the product, yes, went to the ground, but you should know that it can be used for more than just making porridge. It can even vend out coffee or tea. And that's why I keep telling you guys, the ideas you come up with should be long-term. So they made this, the end product when we go, there's one that's in the office, and when you go to it, we can put coffee, we can put tea. It's not just porridge. So as a design thinker, you must be that creative, okay? You must also help your end user to see far, okay? So they ended up having a machine that could be used for multiple purposes, and that fit both the end user and the vendor. Like the vendor who was putting the machine within their shops, so that, so I'm going to, whoever comes does not necessarily want to have porridge, but can have tea, but can have coffee. Because after a while, people didn't just want to drink porridge, okay? So when I tell you guys you need to think long term, it's because whatever solutions you're bringing, you want to see people 10 years down the line still using your product or your service, okay? Yes, so you have to keep that in mind. So it was called the Ujileo project. And I want to tell you about the next project. This project, what you see here is an example of a prototype that recently we did. Now, Think Place had a project that's called World Reader. I think I've mentioned this before from time to time. Now, the World Reader Project came to assist 3 to 5 year olds to have enjoyful learning moments with their parents. And so we the World Reader had what are known as tips. Now, tips are short activities that you get to do with a person, but they have a learning, there's something you're learning every time you carry out an activity. Okay. And so we had printed, if you see this, the first girl who is wearing a maroon jumper, she's holding an A4 paper. Now, we printed these activities on an A4 paper, which is the first, the girl who you're seeing. And we took this prototype to the field. And so when we were in the field testing, the comments we got from the users were, this paper is not durable. It will easily tear, okay? And so I'm going to use that insight to show you how we were able to create an end product that is now being used within the schools. So when they told us that they saw that durability was one of the things that they wanted us to change, and then they said the paper was also very bulky. So it is not long lasting and it's very bulky, because we were printing 411 of these papers. And so the first time we told them that these tips will be 411. When we went to test, we didn't print out 411 activities. So that's why it is low fidelity prototyping. We were saving money and time. So we printed around 20 of them and we went. And the lady you see on the far left-hand side here gave us comments. She was in this room with other women as well who held the tips and they were like, this is too bulky. This is not a durable paper. We need you to change this, because if children are the ones who are going to be carrying these papers home, they might not get home in full. And so they were okay with the activities, but the presentation of the product was what they were not okay with. And so when you move to the next diagram, you can see the papers are now smaller. So they told us it was too bulky. So we went and printed A5. A5 is a smaller version of the paper that you see this lady holding. And remember, their second comment was based on, we want the paper you gave us at first will not last longer. It won't last long because it's an A4 paper. It's very light. If my child carries this home, it will tear, it can be spilled on something. So we went and did what is known as lamination. And we laminated these papers. And this second part, where you see these activities that have here on the picture in the middle, we took them for testing too. Just as we took the first A4 paper, we took these A5 papers for testing. And when we were testing, they told us, wow, thank you for laminating this paper. Now we can see durability. This will last longer. And then they said the size is also now looking better because we had reduced the size of the paper to an A5 from an A4. But they called us out again and told us, we feel that if you give a child this paper to go home with, when they are separated like this, the chances of this child losing these papers will be easy. So when they told us that, we asked, how do you think we can make how do you think we can build up on this so that these papers do not get lost? And so they asked us to bound them. And that's why you're seeing this last picture here of the product that has been spiral bound. Now, it's all these papers you see, all these activities you see at the middle picture here were put into a spiral bound, like a book. Okay? And now it became easier that each student can be given this book, take it home, do the activity, bring it back. Okay? And we were sure that none of them would get lost, none of them would be torn, none of them would have an issue and say they were bulky, because we sorted that. We made them smaller, we made it more durable by adding laminating paper, and we made it less possible for them to get lost by binding them. And so I hope you guys are understanding what we mean by low fidelity prototyping to high fidelity prototyping to the end product, which is now this end product. Now, if we would have started from backwards going towards the forward side, if we would have started with this side and maybe laminated A4 papers instead of A5 papers, it would have been, one, costly, and it would have wasted a lot of time, because at the end of the day, if we'd have taken the end product to them without testing, the chances of them refusing to use the product would have been higher. And then you'd have ended up using a lot of time and wasting a lot of money. Okay? I hope you're understanding the process. And so I put this example here because this is a third example I want to show you. We carried out a project that was called Sex Manenos. Now, Sex Manenos is a YMCA project that was done by Think Place. Think Place, YMCA partnered with Think Place because they found that women were no longer accessing family planning services. And the reason the women were not accessing the services, they were being enticed by men. There was a men aspect to it. And so we went on the ground and we collected various insights. And this is what I want to tell you, that our prototypes are guided by our insights. This is the point I want you to understand. We do not just come up with these services or products. We are guided by insights. Insights guide us on the prototypes that we make. And so during the YMCA research, Sarah was also part of this research. We found one of the insights that guided us towards the prototypes that I will show you was, young women are afraid of sharing SRH-related matters with their partners in fear of not being supported. They result in secretly acquiring their preferred methods in hope that their partners don't find out. And so we were inquiring about women. Why are they not accessing family planning? There was a lot of lack of support from their partners, okay? And so for each insight that we design, we normally come up with what is known as a design opportunity, okay? And the design opportunity is, how do we create a safe space for young women to openly discuss issues about SRHR? SRHR is sexual reproductive health, without fear of judgment or not getting the support they require. And so for every insight that we normally come up with, we try and develop a design opportunity. Now, the design opportunity is what guides you during your ideation process. When you're trying to come up with solutions, you use this design opportunity to help you come up with those ideas and those solutions that you think will help that community. Most of our design opportunities are normally questions. They are questions. So anytime you'll see any of our Think Place reports, you will see the insight and then the insight expounded on, and then you will see the design opportunity. And so I just wanted to show you this so that you know that our prototypes are normally based on the insights we gathered. And so this was one of the insights. This was insight number 2. Okay. And then there was insight number 3. And so with the YMCA project, we wanted women to want to come on board to use these family planning services, but we also wanted men to support their women, okay? And the project was aiming for young boys and girls, because we became aware, or we are also aware, that everywhere within the world, young boys and girls are sexually active. And so the project was surrounding boys and girls who go to university, but it was also surrounding older men and women. So it was a blend of both. So the older men and women who were involved were being asked, do you talk to your children about sexual reproductive health? You know, what does your child know about it? So our stakeholders involved the parents to the children. Our stakeholders involved the children themselves. And our stakeholders also involved the facilities, okay? Because we were trying to understand, why do people don't want to come to these facilities? You guys have the capacity. You have the nurses, you have the doctors, you have the equipment, but you don't have the people who want to use this service. And the other reason why I have used this example is, if you notice, the World Reader example had a product that was tangible, meaning you could hold it, okay? But with this example I'm giving you on SRH, the prototypes that we developed were more of service-related prototypes. And I keep telling you that most of the time, whatever your project is, the end goal does not necessarily have to be a product you can hold. That's why I'm giving you this second example of the YMCA project. So we wanted to increase the number of women who come to the facility, the number of young women who come to the facility. And we wanted to increase, the number of men who support this young woman to want to come and get services within the facility, especially on family planning. And so once we gathered our insights, we used the design opportunities and held what is known as an ideation workshop. From the ideation workshop, we did what were known as the prototypes. Now, interesting fact I can tell you is this project had quite a number of prototypes, okay? And all the prototypes that were created were based on games. They were games that were meant to incite or bring on board youth to come and get family planning services from facilities. And guess what? We came up with around, I think it was like almost 10 games. Okay, we were doing this project in Kenya and in Zambia, and I went to the team in Zambia. So in Zambia, we had 2 areas where this project was being carried out, in Kitwe and in Livingstone. Kitwe and Livingstone are the towns within Zambia. And so within the 2 towns, we were able to sit with the youth and we learned. You see, during this ideation process, we learned that the youth love playing games. They are very good when it comes to playing games. And when I mean games, I mean they like playing football, they like playing rugby, they like games bring a very huge number of youth together. And so when we had that, youth, the way we can bring youth together is through putting up games. We then asked the youth, what kind of games do you like playing? And one that really stood out was soccer. Okay. And so we had them rally the youth around them and do what were known as soccer tournaments. And within the soccer tournaments, that's why you can see it's called TSA for Change. It's one of the soccer tournaments that were picked up. And so the soccer tournament was picked up. The youth came together. When they were playing soccer, we had a nurse come in and talk to them about sexual reproductive health. Okay. And so this nurse who came in told them the importance of why you should go to the facility, what services you can receive in the facility. And it was through a game. And they each got what were known as like small cards, or they were called like I can tell you, it's like a pamphlet. So when you get the pamphlet, when you go to a facility, you showcase this pamphlet, and the nurse who was there during the soccer challenge attends to you, because you have met this nurse at the soccer challenge, so you're more comfortable to be in a room with her, and she attends to you and is able to give you the services depending on where you have gone. And so this youth who came for this football match each got the pamphlet. They understood. And remember, we wanted both boys and girls. Now, I should have told you that the soccer match had boys who played the game, and it also had girls. So each of them got a chance to play the game as girls and as boys. It was a competition, and the competition gave them prizes. So when they got the prizes and they heard about SRH, they got motivated to want to help their girlfriends learn about family planning. They got motivated to want to take their girlfriends. You know, sometimes men feel that going to the hospital is a woman's affair, or knowing about family planning is a woman's affair. So they tend to alienate themselves from receiving services. Oh, I'm hearing like there's a mic is on. Is there someone's mic which is on? Okay, let me just go on. So after they came to this football match, they got motivated. Now for this prototype, it suited them. Sometimes you will find that you will do a project that does not necessarily need to have a high-end a low and high fidelity prototype. You can come up with a solution that just becomes the high and low fidelity prototype itself. You just carry out the prototyping process as one phase. Sometimes you will get lucky and you will not have to have both high and low fidelity. But what you cannot miss to do is the prototyping phase in general. So they liked the soccer idea, they embraced it, and we did not have to refine it further. You understand? So there was no high fidelity prototyping, but there was just a prototyping phase. And so we were able to get the youth to come on board when it comes to seeking family planning services. And we were able to get the men to understand what their role is when it comes to family planning services and why it is important for them to come on board. And we were able to get the men to understand the effects it has when they do not accompany or encourage their women to get family planning services. And so this was not the only game that was there, but it is an example of the game. And so this was the TSA for Change. So this is the game. This is how the picture looked like. This was the game that was developed. And these were the youth who came and played the game. And as we continue following up through the YMCA, because we carried out this project through YMCA in Zambia, when we talk to the other youth, they tell us that it's something that's still ongoing. It's something that interested them. Now, it was done last year, and this is the second year. So I'm hoping that with time, I can tell you guys 5 years from now that it's also still going on. And when I keep telling you guys long term, you can imagine that this youth will grow and they will have children. They will use this same prototype to help their children learn about family planning. So I want you guys to see that all solutions that we try to come up with are long term. These same solutions of playing these games so that the youth can be able to engage, so that the youth can be able to understand about sexual reproductive health, so that we increase the uptake of family planning among youth and decrease people having unexpected pregnancies. This prototype, this solution is one that can be used up to 10 years from now. Now, if we go back to the World Reader project, this solution, this last solution that we came up with, this bounded tips, these activities that were bounded into one, can be used even 10 years from now, can be used even 5 years from now. So as a HCD designer, remember, your prototypes are guided by your insights. So just note that as per now, when you're doing your research, you should be having something that looks like these pages. Your insights should be something like this. For every insight, you should be citing what is called a design opportunity. Now, your design opportunity should be guiding you to have ideas on the possible solutions to your problem. Okay? And the solutions to the problem that you come up with could have two phases. And this is either the low fidelity prototyping and high fidelity prototyping, or it could have one prototyping phase. Now, for World Reader, the way I told you, it had low fidelity prototyping, high fidelity prototyping, and then the final product. Now, for this project, for YMCA, it only had one prototyping phase that ended up being embraced. So remember, if you find that you don't have two prototyping stages, it's still okay so long as you have a prototyping phase. Okay? Just remember that it is key for you to test before you get to the ground, before you roll out your final product. Remember even Sarah's project, had they removed a vending machine before using the cardboard to know the end user's desires, they would have ended up spending so much money than what, and then they would have also ended up spending so much time. But they used the cardboard. It is inexpensive and it is time manageable. Remember that prototyping is a very fast process. You don't take too long on it. So what is our take home from this session today? Prototyping can be quick and effective way of bringing you and your client's idea. A sample of your intended users or evaluators can be observed, tested, and their opinions can be used in order to improve. So you're improving based on the insights you got, the solutions, the ideas you built up. So now you're putting these ideas into a product or a service. You're prototyping so that you can improve on it, so that this end user, whatever they have, they will use it for long term. I hope it's making sense. Prototyping methods are generally classified as two: low fidelity and high fidelity. Okay, that's another thing you need to remember from this class. And while high fidelity prototypes can help the design team gain valuable insights into how the product will be received when distributed, high fidelity prototypes can be time consuming and have the potential to significantly delay a project. So when you're prototyping, the aim is to understand, don't do high before low. Okay, you start with low and then go to high. And also, I don't want to confuse you, but I need you to understand that sometimes you can have a solution that does not need to have both phases, but it does not mean that you skip the phase. So that's why I have given you the example of this Zambia project. The Zambia project, all we did was come up with sport games that the youth could play. But there was no high and low process, low and high process. It just had one phase of prototyping. But if you look at this project, it had both low and high fidelity prototyping. It's not a must that it has both, but you should ensure that you have a prototyping phase depending on what your end product looks like. Now, that's the end of the session. I know I spoke a lot, but I'm hoping that you have been able to gather something from this lesson. Remember, we prototype to save money, we prototype to save time. Remember that when you're prototyping, keep it simple. Use what you have. If it's a box that you need to design something, use that carton box to design it. If it's a service, go directly to the people who you want to get to use the service and ask them about it, you know. So it was as simple as the Zambia project was as simple as sitting with various youth who we knew were sexually active, or who came out and said that I'm sexually active. I know I'm a sexually active youth. I know I have a boyfriend. I know I have a girlfriend. I don't like going for family planning services because I find it's not a manly thing for me to do, you know. It's not a manly thing. So them, they were for, can you help me understand why a man should go and get these services? And then now we were of the opinion, let's play some games, have a youth nurse facilitator come in and talk of the importance of SRH, and then give these youth pamphlets and the youth will use these pamphlets to go to these facilities, you know, and within these facilities be able to see the nurse who came to the ground and this nurse will attend to them and give them the services they need, you know? So I just would like you to know that it's a process that it can be a service or it can be a product, okay? Don't skip the phase. You can have 2 phases within prototyping, low and high fidelity prototype, but you can also have it as 1 phase. It does not necessarily always have to have both phases, okay? So I'd like, okay, so I've seen the request for the notes. Yes, I will share the notes, and I will also be available for any questions that you have, for any clarifications that you need. You can inquire and I'll be able to assist. And I can also be able to take up some questions right now. As I prepare for a video. So whoever has a question. So I need to share this link. I'm sharing a link with Lawrence so he can play it from his end, because every time I try to play from my side, you guys can't hear. So I want to share with Lawrence. Here we go. So okay, just yes, you can ask. I've sent you a link. If you can be able to share your plate for them. As you're preparing, Samuel, you can ask.
Okay, ma. My question is, among the 2 type of prototypes, which one will be the best one to use among the low and the high fidelity?
So I can. I don't know why there's an echo, but you will always be. Don't skip. Just use both, especially now because you guys are just beginning to learn about prototyping and about the HCD process. Do not skip either of the two. Yeah, Samuel, you can mute your mic.
Okay, ma.
Okay. So Samuel, thank you for your question. As a beginner in HCD, I would not advise you to skip either of the 2. I'd say kindly use both the phases. Go through low fidelity and go through high fidelity. Do not skip either of the 2. But I want, I hope you all will be able to hear Lawrence's machine. He's playing this video for you that I want you to see. And then I'll take up other questions after. Yeah, so Lawrence, up to you now.
The 4th phase in the design thinking process is prototype. And that is where we make some form of what it is that we're trying to put out for our users, humans, clients, customers. So it's basically a mock-up of what it is that we want to make. And in prototyping, well, the reason that we're doing this is we want to explore to make sure that the problem we have identified, the problem we have ideated on, and the problem that we have tried to solve with our prototype is actually the right problem. So in creating a physical mock-up, a wireframe, a low fidelity mock-up, a paper prototype, a book dummy, whatever it is that we're designing, we want to explore how this thing is working or not working. We want to inspire our users or our colleagues and collaborators by putting something in their hands. So you've often seen these like cardboard mock-ups from the first mouse, the first computer mouse that was ever created. We want to inspire people to find out and collect more data about what is working and what is not working. And a prototype, in whatever form it takes, is a chance to have a conversation, to talk about what this thing is and if it's meeting the needs and creating the feelings in the humans that we are designing for. So some of the things that we need to keep in mind and embrace in this phase of the process is 1, failure. There are going to be things that don't work. There are going to be things that we need to just trash completely. And we need to be comfortable with that, because the more we can release and let go and move on to a new idea or a new design, the faster, the better the product will be in the end. Iteration. It's multiple attempts. There's no such thing as one of something. We're always producing many versions, many variations, and we call that iteration. That is part of this process. And then the third thing that we want to keep in mind is what we learn from the prototype may mean that we need to revisit empathy, define, ideate. We may need to revisit some of the previous phases. So we want to keep those things in mind. Now, some of the forms that prototypes can take, and depending on whether we're designing for mobile applications or we're designing for services or we're designing a public service announcement, a PSA, an animation, we may be creating paper prototypes. Those are actually still very useful for websites and mobile applications. Animatics in the terms of motion graphics or animations, we need to test and make sure that the movement and the story that we're trying to tell is effective. Comps, that really stands for comprehensives. So if it's brochures, if it's printed matter, if it's branding, then we need to create comprehensives of what these final products will look like. And that brings me to low fidelity and high fidelity, especially in mobile application design, for example. We might start out with low fidelity paper prototypes, test those with users, and then take them to higher fidelity until they're actual high functioning, high fidelity prototypes that we're delivering through a prototype service or is actually being developed with the back-end code. Wireframes are a form of prototyping. Walkthroughs, if it's service design and we're creating a new service to be delivered, let's go back to that TSA example. If we're trying to explore how we could redesign that process, we might do walkthroughs, actual tests of whether this process will actually work. And that is also maquettes. If it's a point of purchase experience that we're creating, we might create a mock-up of that point of purchase design. So this is prototyping.
Okay. Thank you so much. Don't play the next one. Yeah, you can pause. Thank you. So, have you guys seen? It's like what I have just told you during this whole session has been condensed to a video and it has played just now. And I wanted you to understand the process. She has said one key thing that you should also pick up on, that sometimes you will try and it will fail. But failure does not mean we don't try again. Failure means we look back at what happened and pick up. And I want to tell you, I told you that we did the YMCA project in Kenya and in Zambia. Now, in Kenya, we did the YMCA project in 2 towns, in Nairobi and in Nyeri. Yes, we'll forward the link to the video also. And so can I tell you, in Nyeri, it failed. We tried to test, but we did not have an audience that wanted to accommodate us. And we tried to push together the resources we had to bring them on board, but they were just not accommodative. And I want you to know that it can happen. You could have this project, you have the idea, you have the resources, but sometimes your audience just turns you down. And we went back to them, we revisited, we reviewed, we tried, we wanted to understand why has this happened and how can we change this, okay? And we sat with them, we talked to them, and they gave us their views, and we changed some of the activities to what would suit them. But guess what? It still didn't work. We got turned down again. And so we had to move forward without using Nyeri as part of our prototyping, okay? And so mark what the lady says. She has told you failure will be part of the process, but pick yourself up, go back to your insights, look through, see why did we try this? Why is it that I got this insight from the research, but it's something that my community, my end user, is refusing to use? I want you to know that, as I had told you, and if you've had her, do you know she's like she's a designer who has very good experience. If once this link is shared, just look through how she talks about HCD. And she has told you something that I've even mentioned to you, that you will find yourself going back to these phases over and over again. And that's why I was telling you to note that the HCD process, it's not linear, it is non-linear. That's why I showed you that picture, that you can be at testing, but find yourself going back to empathizing. And empathizing is simply, let me relook this problem before I try to go down to testing the solutions. You could be in the field testing and people reject your solutions. And you have to go back again to, what insights did I get? What ideas did people bring out as ideas that could solve this solution? You could be at prototyping and have to go back to the ideation stage. You could be at testing and have to go back to the research phase. So it is not going to be linear. It's not going to be a linear process. It's not going to be now you've finished research, you've closed, okay? You'll find yourself going back and forth in between these phases. Number 2, there'll be chances of failure, but failure does not mean you quit on your project. It means you relook what didn't work. Why is this not working? And the best way for you to ensure that you minimize on your chances of failure is using the stakeholders. And I keep reminding you guys that each time you're moving through one phase to another, ensure that end user is moving with you. Your voice should be heard less. Not that your voice doesn't matter, but remember, you're helping this end user. The voice of that end user must be what is heard more than you. Because the moment you underlook, and that's why I keep sharing this page with you. I think I just need to show you. Is that page? Yeah. So there's this page I keep sharing with you guys. The moment you underlook this person, you see, if you're the one who's talking, but they are not talking back to you, that gives you a higher chance of not succeeding in your project. But every time you're relaying information, ensure that it is two-way, that these people are giving you feedback. As you're moving to the next step, these people are giving you feedback. As you're moving that through these steps, that they are with you throughout the whole process. Okay? So from research, they're the ones who are giving you the feedback. When they're generating ideas, they're the ones who are generating those ideas. When you're prototyping, they're the ones coming up with how they want that prototype to look like. When you're testing with them, so that by the time you're having your end product, you're sure that they are going to use that product or service, that it will be easy for them to use. Now, do not skip any of these processes. And if you might be somewhere right now that maybe you've seen that you skipped something, just go back and relook. It's okay. Sometimes we may underlook some of these circumstances. Maybe it was even during your research process. You may have gathered insights, but you didn't gather from the correct community or the correct group of people. Go back. Now is your chance to go back. Maybe you went through the ideation process, but you missed to include certain stakeholders who now you see are very important, whose voice now you see must be heard. Like the way I told you, if you want to work with the community, do not forget the administrative people. These people who will come to your community, the chief, people as simple as the chief, should be aware of what you're doing on the ground, someone as simple as the facility, you don't just go and tell people, oh, okay, Sarah's facility is offering family planning services, yet Sarah, the one who runs the facility, is not aware. That's an important stakeholder. So you need to look who I'm solving a problem for this community, but who is involved within this community? Who is that stakeholder that I shouldn't miss out on, And once you look and write down who is going to be part of this having this project that you're running, it will be easier for you to roll these things out. So you could be in ideation, but maybe you only took ideas from your community. You missed a certain stakeholder. Now is your chance to go back. You may have already gone to scaling and testing, meaning some of you might have already planted. And maybe now you're figuring, oh my God, I didn't inquire whether this is all they wanted. Maybe you didn't get information on where they wanted the trees to be planted. Now this is your chance to go back and prototype that phase you missed. This is your chance to go back and make it right. And this is now your opportunity to also use this time to engage with me and Sarah and ask us those hard questions those tough questions that you're going through. Email us, WhatsApp us. Take this time to really review your project and try and catch up with where we are, because we only have either 1 or 2 more classes left and we don't want to leave you guys hanging. Yeah, I think for me, that's where I want to pause it for today and just give it back to Lawrence for closing, or also now hear out if you have any questions or clarifications.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sarah and Jacinta, for today's session. I really hope that our colleagues were able to learn from this. Samuel is asking if the video can be shared. Samuel, I think the link was just shared in the group, in the chat box, but maybe I can copy this link and then share in the WhatsApp group. Let me just do that right now. Otherwise, thank you so much for today. Let's hope that we've learned from this, but also Let's keep engaging the WhatsApp group. As Sarah and Jacinda mentioned, they'll be also available to answer your questions just in case you have some. For those of you who also have not done your assignment, we are practically getting close to mostly the end of our training. So I'm really looking forward to your assignments. I hope you can complete them, because there might be a time where there will actually be no time for you to do these assignments, and we will have to hold that against you. But otherwise, thank you so much for today. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Yeah, and encourage your friends to come in for the next class. It's very important. Bye.
All right. Bye. Thank you for the session. It was very, very powerful. I'm really looking forward to reading more about it, because there's a lot that I'm doing around with the youth. So there are a lot of prototypes that I'll trying to come up with. It might not be a gadget, but something that will be sustainable, that will help us as youths, especially lack of employment in my country and lack of quality education. I really want to work on that and improve on the project that I already started concerning quality education.
Okay. I'll make sure I keep in touch with you, and where I can help, I will help you out. Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.